Problems 4 through 6 are basically an introduction to the A equals P times the quantity 1 plus RT formula. This is another simple interest formula, the more complicated of the two simple interest formulas. In problem 4, it's just kind of getting comfortable with the formula. It says to use a distributive property, so it's really clear to you what A is in the problem, or in the formula. So if you distribute the P, you end up with A equals P plus PRT. PRT should look familiar. That was the part of the formula you just used in problems 1 through 3. So in this formula, A is the accumulated or the ending amount. P is the principal or the starting amount. PRT is the interest amount in a simple interest formula. So the accumulated amount is equal to P plus any interest accumulated along or accrued along the way. So again, PRT is equal to I. So another way to look at this formula is A equals P plus I. Here it is again, where I is the interest amount, P is the starting amount, and A is that ending amount. So ending amount equals starting amount plus interest. Again, this is for simple interest problems. All right, so we'll come back to this formula here in just a minute. Actually, all of this in just a minute when we do problem 6. So in problem 5, several things are given to you, and you're asked again to use the A equals P times the quantity 1 plus RT formula. So in problem 5, you're asked to find the ending amount A. You're given time as 8 months, and we can't use a time written in months. We have to convert that to years. So you can use 8/12, or you can simplify that to 2/3. Do not round this 2.67. That is not okay. Now, these things I wrote out in words here just for clarification. You do not need to write that on your paper. So A, we don't know. Time is either 8/12 or 2/3. Either one's fine. Convert interest rate into a decimal number. The starting amount is 5,000. This is the formula we're using. So in this problem, this is just a straight plug and chug because we're given everything except A. So we were given P, we're given R, we're given T, and then just do the math. It's really easy to make a mistake though, so just be careful when you do the math that you don't do anything silly. And then it ends up telling you, or you end up finding out that the accumulated amount is $5,141.67. Now this problem also said to assume this is a loan problem and explain what the value of A means to the person who borrowed the money. So if this is a loan problem, the starting amount was P, so that means you borrowed $5,000. The ending amount is the A amount, so that means at the end that $5,000 became $5,141.67. So basically, the person borrowed $5,000, and in 8 months, he must repay the ending amount, the $5,141.67. That's the repayment amount. So this is how much was borrowed. This is how much is repaid. This includes the amount borrowed, $5,000, plus any interest that was accrued along the way. And it didn't ask us for the actual interest amount, but if it asked us to find it, we could. The interest amount in this problem was $141.67. So again, starting amount, what amount has to be repaid at the end of the 8 months, which was the length of the loan. All right, and then problem 6 is a problem asking you to find the simple interest rate. And it tells us to use that same formula, that A equals P times the quantity 1 plus RT formula. So let me put this around here. Okay, so in problem 6, here is what we were given. We do not know the interest rate, but we know where we start. It's 6 years, so just a basic 6. We know where we end up. And then as far as the formula goes, there are 2 options here. The first one, I'm just going to straight up use the formula as it's written and just substitute in, and I'm looking for R, which is kind of in the middle of this formula, but that's all right. So I do want to point out that the formula says R times T, and I wrote T times R because it just looks nicer than to write RT. Algebraically, you know that, and it means the same thing because of commutative property of multiplication. So now we're solving this for R. Now, the way I solved this here, I've just done a couple things to point out a few things to you along the way. You may do this a little differently. That's fine. But in the first step, I divided both sides by 10,500. And when you divide the 18,500 by 10,500, the number's not pretty. You cannot round. That's why I went ahead and wrote this as a fraction. My calculator converts ugly decimals to fractions by hitting math enter as yours will. So not a big deal to do that. The calculator's doing it. Now I'm solving for r, so I need to subtract 1. And again, I didn't actually write out what I get when I subtract 1 because, I just don't want to. And now I need to divide both sides by 6. And again, my calculator's doing this. So if you are using different calculator punches along the way, no problem. But I need to be able to see how you get from here to r equals. And I don't need to see every single step you do. I'm fairly good at math. I just need to be able to look at your work and be able to follow it. So if I can't follow it, chances are good you can't follow it either. So make sure that you write enough that somebody can follow it and know I do not need to see every single step along the way. I just need to be able to reason through your process. So if I keep going here, yeah, this is still not good. I'm looking for an interest rate. And it does say to write the interest rate rounded to 1 decimal place. So here we go. So I went out 3 digits, other than, then there's no 0 here. But when I convert this to a percent, I end up with 12.7%. So this is far enough for me to get a percent rounded to 1 decimal place. And that's the simple interest rate. All right, that's one option. I'm going to show you the other option here, or another option here, for this particular problem. So back in problem 4, we mentioned that A is equal to P plus I, because this is the PRT amount. So if I rewrite this a little bit, I can see that the interest amount is equal to A minus P. I just took this formula and subtracted P from both sides and got here. So I am, if I do that, what that allows me to do is work with the interest amount. Now in this problem, I was not straight up given the interest amount. However, I can find the interest amount because I know A and I know P. So if you subtract where you ended up from where you started from where you ended up, you end up with $8,000. That is the interest amount in this problem. So even though it wasn't given in the given information, like straight up given, I can easily find it because I have these other two values. Again, this only works because this is a simple interest problem. So since I have the interest amount, that allows me to use the smaller formula, the simpler formula. And you can use the simpler formula. You've got your I, you've got your P, you've got your T, you do not know R, and then you're just solving along the way. This fraction should look incredibly familiar, and it ends up being about 0.127, which is about 12.7%. So once again, I've shown you two options. There are more than two options of how to get this answer, but I just wanted to show you two and just let you know there are variations to things out there. A couple of things I'm a stickler on. I always want to see the formula you use. I always want to see the substitutions. And I always want to see what I call reasonable steps. So you'll get more and more comfortable with that as we go along. You do not ever have to solve it exactly the same way I do. You just have to solve it an algebraically correct way. And I need to be able to follow what those steps are. That's what I'm not teaching you algebra. You already know algebra. I just need to make sure that you're solving an algebraically correct way. So again, looking back here, you do need to always write the formula, always write the substitutions. I strongly recommend that you take the time to define variables. In these first few practice problems, I'm telling you which formula to use. I will not do that for long. And you, at some point very soon, you will have to determine which formula to use. So the more comfortable you are with defining variables and understanding the scenario, the easier it will be for you to select the right formula and then do the correct work to get the correct answer. So anything that you can do along the way to help yourself is good here. If you have any issues with any of this, make sure you reach out to me. If you do have problems, we want to address those sooner rather than later, and I hope things continue to go well.